Hey guys, Brett Weiss here. Welcome to another video. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It is super helpful. If you like retro gaming, you came to the right place. Got a really interesting one today for you guys. Just going to be vlogging a little bit and talking about an article I discovered from 1982. Now, this is courtesy of Michael Thomason of Good Deal Games. He posted it on Facebook and I ran across it. And it's about three really famous celebrities commenting on video games. It's an interesting perspective because, guys, in 1982, video games were still seen as sort of mysterious and new, and people were wondering about the cognitive effects they would have on children, even more so than today. There was kind of a panic and a scare about video games, about how much time people were playing them, kids in particular. And this article has three very famous celebrities: Martin Landau, Dr. Joyce Brothers, and Charlton Heston, the great Charlton Heston, who once I got to spend 2 hours hanging out with, talking to. I do have a video on that. I'll leave a link here. But it's these celebrities just talking about their general impressions of video games, and it's really fascinating. And so I'm going to read those for you. And it really gives you a little window into 1982 pop culture and just sort of the what was thought of video games at the time. It's really interesting, and it might not be quite what you think. So let's check it out. Hey guys, very briefly, in case you don't know, I'm the author of the 100 Greatest Console Video Games series, the Classic Home Video Games series, the Omnibus series, lots of retro gaming books. So you can just go to brettweisswords.com to read all my stuff, to get links and everything, and to read bonus articles. All right, guys, so what does Martin Landau think of video games? He was the star of TV's Mission Impossible and Space 1999, kind of a fun, some people think it's boring. It's kind of a cerebral, contemplative show, science fiction show, and he was the captain of the ship. I'd enjoyed it, although it could get a little dull at times. And Martin Landau is known for Ed Wood and a Woody Allen movie called Crimes and Misdemeanors. That's just a brilliant movie about guilt. He says, he was just asked about video games in general. He says, my personal experience with video games is somewhat limited, but I do think that we're developing a group of young people whose coordination is amazing thanks to these games. Yes, back in the day, eye-hand coordination was touted as a positive aspect of video games from a lot of people, a lot of video game apologists, a lot of video game fans, people that were pro video games touted eye-hand coordination. This was a big talking point. You don't hear much about that today because so many games are more like adventure-based and not Twitch games. Back then, so many games, most of them were just, had to move really quickly, the joystick or the buttons, press them real fast or, dodge things and shoot real quickly. So eye-hand coordination was often touted as this great thing, which I suppose it is. What he continues, Martin Landau, what fascinates me most are the computer games where 10 or 15 people in different parts of the country can play games together. The only danger I see is that kids who can push buttons don't bother to learn other things, whether it's math or literature. Yeah, there was a lot of concern about, people just loved video games so much and they were so fascinated with them that they wouldn't do other things. And that's definitely true of some people. Guys, I love video games as much as the next person, don't I, Daisy? But boy, you've got to do, you really need some variety in your life, and you really got to go outside and touch grass, as they say, and get some exercise. Very important. And it's interesting that he talked about, online multiplayer way back then. So he continues, as long as video games don't take the place of these pursuits, I see nothing wrong with them. Got some pretty progressive attitudes here, as you'll see as I read along. Dr. Joyce Brothers, author and lecturer. She's a famous psychologist back in the day. A lot of you younger viewers probably haven't heard of her, but she was very famous back then. I think of sort of like Dr. Phil or somebody like that. That was Dr. Joyce Brothers back in the day. I don't think video games are bad at all. Hey, Dr. Joyce Brothers said it. Must be true. When they take kids away from schoolwork or bring them to a place where they can meet undesirable people, that's a debit, or perhaps a negative, you might call. So it's interesting that she says this, undesirable people, because a lot of people were concerned with, sort of shady or grungy arcades back in the day, sort of the speakeasies for teenagers. Just these run-down, seedy arcades that were dark and people were smoking and sometimes drinking, and the arcades were kind of run down, and it was kind of a meetup place for some of the less desirables. That was definitely a concern back in the day. There were definitely two kinds of arcades, mainly back in the day. There was these mainstream, polished ones that were real well lit and real nice, like in malls. And then there were the more seedier ones, these rundown places that were just a little sketch. And for me, both kinds are fun. Some of you may consider the more, sleazy arcades to be the more authentic experience from the early 80s, but I really enjoyed both kinds of arcades back growing up. But video games, Dr. Joyce Brothers continues, per se are not negative at all. They make youngsters conversant with the concept of computers. That was also touted a lot because, see, computers were a very new thing back in the early 80s. And a lot of people, their only exposure to computers were playing video games. Oftentimes they didn't see them at their jobs or their school or anywhere or at their home. But video games were sort of a lot of people's first introduction to, hands-on computers. So they make youngsters conversant with the concept of computers, show them that the computer is a friend rather than an enemy. Yeah, a lot of people were really intimidated by computers and didn't understand them. This is important since we're living in a world where we must be allies of computers. Definitely true, as you can see how things have progressed over time. Video games show that they can control computers in addition to the training in mathematical concepts and improved eye-hand coordination. Yes, that was a big deal back in the day. It doesn't trouble me at all that these games are encourage aggression without mercy because it's a way of getting out some of this aggression. Very important comment here by Dr. Joyce Brothers. I agree. I think video games are a great outlet for aggression without doing that aggression in real life. It's just a great escape. It's a great way to blow off steam. It's a great way to sort of, just sort of be aggressive and violent without doing it in real life. Apparently it's a need humans have. Let's see. She goes, I'd rather see them aggressive without mercy in a game than beating up on one another. Very true. I think video games can play a role in reducing real-life violence. All right, next up, the great Charlton Heston, who probably most of you know from Planet of the Apes, and he was on the Omega Man and so many great movies. Love me some Charlton Heston, just a legend, Soylent Green, amazing stuff. In this article, it touts him as the star of Ben-Hur and the upcoming Motherlode, a movie called Motherlode. Never saw that one. I hadn't heard of it till I was reading this article. So Charlton Heston, his opinion on video games, he goes, it was about 1974 at the airport in Madrid that I first played a Pong game. I had just finished making the Three Musketeers and was waiting for a plane. As it happens, I haven't played a video game since I find them quite interesting. It's interesting. He says, as it happens, I haven't played a video game since. Okay, period. I find them quite interesting, but they fail to captivate me totally. I don't, however, subscribe to the fear many people have that video games will destroy our young. They said the same thing about rock music, and God knows if kids can survive anything, God knows if kids can survive that, they can survive anything. Apparently, Mr. Heston's not a fan of rock and roll. Anyway, that's pretty cool. So you got three massive celebrities, Martin Landau, Dr. Joyce Brothers, Charlton Heston, sounding off on video games, giving them an overall positive vibe. Now, I don't know where this article came from because it's just a screen grab of this article without context, but it is from 1982 because that's when the movie Motherlode came out, and Heston said that movie was about to come out. But it definitely gives you a little window into the past of what people were thinking about video games at the time. These three don't appear to be hardcore gamers, and this was probably in a video game magazine since it's all positive. It'd been nice to see, some negative takes, but yeah, it just sort of gives you a window of the past of what people were thinking. There were so many concerns about video games in the early 80s of how they were going to corrupt youth and how they were, going to just take over and get people obsessed and not having, sort of a well-rounded life. And Some of that's true. So there are definitely people that get so immersed in video games, especially now that there's so many free-to-play games on your phone and you just have video games with you all the time, that maybe you're neglecting certain other parts of your life, certain other areas of your life, and your life's not quite as well rounded, or you're not as active or mobile or getting as much exercise as you need. But so that's definitely true. But hey, overall, I think video games are a positive, and I think they can be very positive for, social engagements where you're hanging out with other people in arcades or couch co-op. With the boom of retro arcades, guys, this is a great way to meet people, to meet other gamers. Every big city these days has probably more than one retro arcade, and there's certainly tons in Dallas Fort Worth where I live. And there's just so many positives to video games, and they're definitely negatives. So just, and the biggest negative really is just playing, as far as I can see. I don't think they make people deranged or violent or anything. The biggest negative is probably just neglecting other aspects of your life. So anyway, like with anything else, I'm not going to say moderation, because moderation makes it sound like you're just playing video games every once in a while. I think it's perfectly cool to play a lot of video games if you're not neglecting your family, if you're not neglecting your health and all that kind of stuff. Super interesting, guys. Let me know in the comments. Are you a fan of Martin Landau, Charlton Heston? Have you seen their movies? Dr. Joyce Brothers, if you don't know who some of these people are, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear that. Frequently kind of surprised about, there's some incredibly famous people that I grew up with that were just, everybody knew, that today they're just kind of lost to time. They might be aware of a famous YouTuber or TikTok star, but haven't heard of someone just absolutely legendary by Charlton Heston. Really interesting, guys. So let me know in the comments. Did you grow up gaming in the early 80s? Do you remember hearing about gaming by apologists and fans touting the virtues of things like eye-hand coordination and the fact that they get you comfortable with the concept of computers because they were alien to so many people in the early 80s. All right, guys, thanks for watching another one of my vlog videos. Hopefully we'll have a edited video up for you soon. My editor's been very busy, which is I totally get. But anyway, we'll continue uploading videos. I'll do some more arcade walkthroughs and maybe check out some more stores that have retro gaming stuff. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. We will talk to you in another video.